Let me set the stage for this panel discussion a little bit. Last year at this forum, we had Carrie Scheller and also Patty from ExxonMobil, and we started discussing that, we got to start bringing more young people to this forum. How do we prepare the future workforce? So that's where this idea got started, and both of them promised that, they will bring some millennials to this forum, and we should start a process that we can start bringing more of them. And we did a workshop on Monday, and in fact, we had from Dow, Nathan. I would appreciate if you would stand up for a second. And we have Betsy from ExxonMobil and Scott from ARC. They did a great job, and we had actually a full house. And in fact, if I could ask, if you are under 30, if all of you would stand up, just give us some idea how many folks. Look, we have quite a few actually. We have quite, but we want to bring more. We want to bring more. So the whole idea started that our industry, we want to start preparing the future workforce, and I think that is why we thought. As a matter of fact, Carrie already mentioned to me, we got to continue this program. So, we want to see how we can expand on this program next year. And obviously, Kirk in his presentation, he's absolutely right. In fact, it just happens that I had dishwasher problem, and I did exactly the same thing.
You're probably more skilled than I am.
So what I would like to start this, again, please start thinking about your questions. We would like to hear from you. But let me first start with the question, how do you go about discovering talent internally at your companies, as well as obviously externally when you're recruiting process? What is your process? How do you try to appeal to the universities to bring good talent and so forth? If I could start with you, Carrie, maybe you could lead us off.
Certainly. So we still have our recruiting channels, our university recruiting channels that we have for years. For Dow, like many other large companies, when I started, almost everybody came straight out of college and came through. We did not have many external experienced hires. And if you look at our demographic, like most of the panelists we were discussing today, and probably most of you out there, we've got really a curve, kind of a bathtub, where we are bringing in some new employees, and then we have a real gap in our 30s and early 40s of employees, and then a significant amount of employees in the more senior end. So yes, we're bringing in new students off campus, but we are doing quite a bit more experienced hiring. And we're doing that through diversity job fairs. We're doing that through places that other people are looking at now, through LinkedIn, through a number of other websites and other ways that we're finding students and experienced hires. So yes, we're using our traditional channels, but we are reaching out a lot more to experienced hires to fill in a lot of those knowledge gaps that we just don't have today.
Good. Andres, in Europe, companies have a very good internship type of program. Maybe you could share with us how does BASF go about finding talent?
I mean, as the chemical company, maybe we are facing a lot of problems others in that panel do not have. Because E&I or automation is not the core business for BASF. It's chemical company. And for process engineers, chemists, chemical engineers, it's a natural target to become a member of BASF, but not for automation and electrical engineering. And we are facing competition by Siemens, ABB, Amazon, the technology platform providers, and of course, especially in Germany, with the car makers, BMW, Porsche, Audi. These are very well-established brands, and the students in automation, they're looking for a first job in those industries. So what we do is we try to intensify our relationship management with academia. One of my coworkers is giving lectures at a university. We invite professors one time per year to share their new developments, to see what kind of problems we are facing. We invite PhD students for those events. And of course, we have jobs for apprentices, we have jobs for master thesis students. And so we try to have a very intensified relationship management with academia. And of course, when we have an apprentice which shows talent, we have a talent pool. Even apprentices are getting into that pool. They are regularly contacted for meetings in BASF. Try to keep contact until they are ready to come into our company as an engineer and as a professional. So it's really a very intensified relationship management into academia.
John, at Emerson, they have always had a very good process for bringing young people and training them, and a leadership program. Maybe you could share some of what you did at Emerson.
Yes, happy to do that. By the way, I think I'm on this panel because I'm the closest one to 1,000 years old, and that's a different form of millennial. And anyway, in terms of attracting the talent in the first place, and then I'll cover just briefly the development once they come on board. We've had great success, believe it or not, donating equipment to the universities and working and actually donating time as well from some of our top engineers to influence the curriculum, maybe even teach the curriculum. But automation is not always like a direct discipline in a lot of universities, and so a lot of the students don't get a chance to really experience today's technology with the equipment that sits in the labs at these universities. So we concentrated on that. Obviously, intern programs, those kinds of things as well. But we've had great success with this donation program, so I would encourage other suppliers, and I think even end users could do the same thing to familiarize engineers with what really goes on. Our process internally for development actually began by sitting down and deciding which competencies are the most important for success within our company. And we used an organization called Lominger Leadership Architect. They have over 60 competencies. We narrowed it down to 19. Now, the reason why we did this was that became the language for evaluating talent when you interview, and also for doing performance reviews so that you could give direct, specific feedback. Here's where you're very strong, here's where you need to work. We then also have a high potential group that is typically division by division, and I used to meet with my division presidents every year. They were asked to bring 20 or 25 names, the highest potential people, and we shared them across the different parts of the company. And the goal here was that the higher potential people, if they had not had an increase in responsibility in the last 2 years, we were going to proactively create that for them. And the idea again was to not have people completely go in the vertical pipes of a profession. To really succeed, I think today you need to have a broader exposure. So we did those kinds of things to develop the high potential people, and I'll just say one other thing. You need to tell the high potential people that they are high potential people and that they're highly valued, and give them access to top management in the event that their career is being frustrated. So those are just some ideas.
Excellent. Kirk, I yesterday talked about the connected car. Yeah. Cars are becoming, again, hot toys. Do you have any issues attracting talent, or you still have to go? Maybe you could share how you go about attracting good talent.
It's a good question. We suffer, in a way, a similar problem to Andreas, because we are building the assembly lines and the systems that put together the car. And if you look at the brand name of Kamal, it doesn't carry quite the same shine as maybe a Ford or a BMW or a Daimler. So we're battling with those large corporate companies to hire talent. And we're just finding that, as was said by most of the panelists, there just isn't the talent that is already applicable to the job in the marketplace. They're not coming out of the university with those skills. And so we're basically putting in what I'll say is a kind of a 4-tier system. We're having some very good success with military recruiting and transition from military skill sets to our required skill sets. We have the traditional college recruiting in our development processes, but we are actually going to introduce an apprentice program similar to a German apprentice program and take kids right out of high school and give them the opportunity to get a college degree for free. So that's really try to get that talent earlier in the pipeline, because everybody is at all the job fairs.
Coming to you, Helmut, in Germany, everybody thinks that Germany is a very engineering culture, a lot more engineering culture than we have here. Is that an asset? When I was in China, in fact, China, young people wanted to go into manufacturing because manufacturing was hot. They want to go to engineering. The young people want to go into engineering. You don't have that issue. Maybe you could share what's going on in Germany. How do you do that?
Maybe let me give you a data point there. If you adjust for population size and compare the US with Germany, in Germany we have about 10 times the number of apprentices we have here in the US. So there is obviously a different mentality still to making things. But there's good news to it too. I mean, I really feel things are changing. And the whole maker movement has definitely a positive impact on the youth. So really making things attracts people again. Although when we then look at the statistics that Kirk showed before, manufacturing is still something, we look at it, but do we really want to go in it? Actually, the statistics become worse when you ask the parents. And then the statistic actually is that, the parents say, manufacturing is good, but when you ask them, would you send your daughter or son into manufacturing, 80% say no. And so there's obviously something to do. Now, what can we do there as an industry? Because it's really not an individual company issue. And we do there on 3 levels, we act there. One is really going into the high schools. For example, with one initiative which we call the Siemens Competition. There, students are entering an engineering or manufacturing project, and they show the latest research, and they get scholarships between $10,000 and $100,000 for then study afterwards. So very attractive. And when you talk to these young people, it's just absolutely amazing. I mean, these are really brilliant people. The next step is really apprenticeship programs. And I think there the interesting part is to really explain how is this different today. It's not your grandfather's manufacturing. It's not the screwdriver. It's the iPad. What our future apprentices walk through the factory halls. And after a 3.5 year, for example, in Charlotte, in our plant there, we do have a 3.5 year mechatronics program. The graduate out of this mechatronics program receives a starting salary which is about 20% higher than a graduate from a liberal arts college. The good news there, on top of this, there's no debt coming with it. He actually earned certain money during this time and didn't pay in. So it's obviously there must be something attractive around this, and I think we have to communicate this more, that this is really something driving the next generation and driving the future of our economy here. And last but not least, working with universities, exactly what John described. I think that's an enormous opportunity to connect business closer to universities, putting equipment in, and it's not purely the equipment. As John pointed out, it's the time. And really having people that go from, gives a practice experience into the universities. One example there on our PLM software side, we work with 11,000 institutions worldwide, and every year there are more than 1 million students trained on the software. But again, it's not purely putting the stuff in, it's really accompanying it during the process. And I think this would be several activities one can do.
Good. Excellent.
Maybe just a comment to that. I mean, that is exactly what I said, that you guys have the opportunity to place your brands, your products already during the education in automation E&I. For BSF, it's pretty difficult. We try to, because there are some programs in special universities, Smart Factory, where we are also member, also to come in. But I mean, it's great to have the own product during the education, or the software logo pops up, and then these guys think, hey, it's a nice product. Maybe I want to work for this company.
Well, actually, Andreas, it's pretty easy. You just have to go to the universities, and when they were educated on Siemens equipment, you tell them, look, this is exactly the equipment we have in our factories, and all the students will come.
Single sourcing.
I've got to tell you, it really happened because my son was recently touring chemical engineering department at my alma mater, so I was feeling good about that. And he came out, and aside from having a great day, he said, and there's a huge piece of equipment in the unit operations lab from Dow Chemical. I'm like, oh, that was wonderful. So, see, you can place, but you've got to put a really big sign on it.
And maybe another comment to John, and I fully agree with you that transparency is this key. I mean, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it was hidden, a secret. You are on the path, career path. I mean, that was not really communicated. Maybe there was a concern that people would derail from the very beginning. Oh, I don't need to work anymore. I become a manager. But nowadays, it's much more transparent, and I think it's a better way to go. Then people are prepared, and they actively develop their own skills, competencies. They take care that they develop on their weaknesses. So I think it's a much better way to communicate to people. We identified you as a common talent.
Excellent, excellent. Let's see if there are questions. Could you please raise hands? Anyone there with questions or comments? Okay, think about your questions. There is one over here. Okay. Please, do we have some mics? Yeah, we'll come to you in a second. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, panel. Michiel Thijsseling, Dow Chemical. So you talk about attracting talent. I think we heard some good ideas about attracting talent, but think about having to stay in process automation for 20 to 25 years. A lot of people here have done that. Will that still be the case in the future? Will we have a career of 25, maybe even 30 years in this business?
Well, that's an interesting question.
May I start to answer? Because that is what we discussed before. Interestingly, I found out that the young generation, they want to remain, they want to stay in their expert field. I had many cases where we had openings with a certain kind of leadership requirement, and people approached me and said, please do not expect me to apply for it. I feel that the young generation, they want to work in small teams, maybe leading a small team, but do not want to have the career in having a huge leadership. So we reacted and we opened up a so-called expert track so that people can grow into the career and without having the leadership responsibility. So that is exactly the path we are going. When someone wants to stay in his expert field, he can stay in that for 20, 25 years, and he can even grow in the career path. Because that is what I see in the new generation. They don't want to lead huge group. They want to work in their expert field, and we have to give them the opportunity to do so.
Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the other thing we see is the employees coming in, the ones that I'm meeting on campus, the newer ones that we're bringing in, they also want to feel a part of this larger community, be part of a sustainable organization. I noticed in all the years I was doing campus recruiting, until the last 10 or 15 years, I was never getting questions about, what are you doing for the environment? What are you doing for society? What are you doing on and on and on? And so one of the programs that we have in Dow, and so it's not only for high potential, we have a high potential program as well, but we have a program for our earlier engineers in manufacturing and engineering called Propel to Excel. And we take these relatively new employees for 2 weeks, generally off-site from their home location. and we run them through technical and leadership training, but it's not the death by PowerPoint. It is bringing in our very senior leaders, and we have a huge commitment for a senior presence to be there. Our senior vice presidents and others coming in, coaching, mentoring, talking to the students. We then, in the weekend off that they have in between, it's not off, we'll take them into the community to do, say, a Habitat for Humanity or other kind of community project, and really have them kind of build that sense of community with their fellow new employees and feel that they're really giving back. And then we see that grow. So that I think what we're hearing from new employees, they want to grow in their field, but they want to feel part of that greater community as well.
Excellent. John?
Yes, I'd like to add a perspective because your question is a very good one. And I've always felt that the automation profession has just not done a very good job of promoting and advertising itself. And if you stop to think about it, someone entering the field gets to touch chemical engineering, mechanical engineering. They get to understand, fluid flows, how a plant works, for example. But then on top of that, you get all you want of networking, software, hardware, mechanicals in valves. I mean, there is no profession, in my view, that ranges as broadly across technologies as an automation profession, yet most of the engineering students don't gravitate to it naturally, and it's our fault that they don't. And I was with some people last night at dinner, and I was struck by a conversation very similar to what you just said, which is they were not talking about bits and bytes and refresh rates and things like that. They were talking about how what they do can contribute to the better performance of their companies and the better safety operation of their companies. And maybe that's what we've been missing, is that we've kind of lived in our little automation universe, worrying about just the technology and not really relating it to the tremendous business value that we can bring to our companies.
Just to add to John's comment, in fact, right now, ARC, we've been very focused on automation all these years, But right now, in fact, I see that opportunities for us have broadened with what we called yesterday the Internet of Things. Connected cars. As a matter of fact, right now, we are saying that we not only help clients in the plant, but we can help them even more now outside the plant, as a matter of fact. So now, certainly we have an opportunity, all of us, to work with our companies to add intelligence to the product. Like we said, industrial companies benefit from connected to the internet two ways, because you're not using smart, intelligent devices and machines in the plants, in the factories, but now you will be monitoring all of these products, the cars and washing machines and refrigerators. So all an automation needs to be added to all of those products. And then once you add that, once you start monitoring asset management, most of you do asset management in your plants. Now you will be doing asset management of all the products out there. In my view right now, the opportunity for automation engineering has broadened tenfold, So I think there are more opportunities for automation folks right now than ever before. Could we go to question over here?
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I applaud all the activities around activities working with universities, and I did here coming out of high school. But in the analytics that I've been looking at, the intake into the universities is abysmal. And do you think that industry, I'd like comments on industry collectively, independent of logos and brands, the need to go farther down into the culture to stimulate interest in STEM because Justin Bieber has a lot more impact than anything that we do at a university level. And by the university, it's too late. And you look at the curve of the intake coming in, this problem is not going to go away with working at university level.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you know, some people talk about the skills gap. And there it starts. It's a wrong expression. It's a training gap. Because as long as we leave the responsibility on the young individuals, it won't change. The responsibility is with all of us here in the room. And I fully agree with you, completely independent where we're coming from. We have their responsibility. What I personally applaud is an initiative that's currently running called the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership, which is led by MIT and by Dow, so by Liveris and Rife. And we do have their steering committee of several companies strongly involved, and there are 5 work streams in this partnership. One is on education and one is of branding of making things, manufacturing. And really on the education side, we are going very deep there. The challenge, however, is, and that's exactly what you're observing, it's a very long-term approach. This is not changing from one day to another because you have to start very early, you have to start already in middle schools, people have to go in there, you have to convince in high schools how attractive it is, like what John described before. I mean, did we do really a good job in describing the attractiveness of these roles? And today, again, manufacturing has nothing to do with the dirty manufacturing of old times. It's just an absolutely fascinating part. And one example which we talked about is virtual commissioning. Yeah? This is, you commission today, you do it virtually first. And you might remember last year we did have Doug McQuestion here, who talked about the Mars rover. Well, that was very similar. They 1,000 times tested the landing virtually. And this is what attracts students. So when we walk into schools and we show the Mars rover, and then we talk about what does it mean, how do you get to this Mars rover, what do you have to do to get to this, you open the eyes completely differently as when you come in and say, well, we need 20 people for our manufacturing site. And I believe there are a lot of very good initiatives currently running, but the responsibility is really on us here, all of us. And it's nothing that will change from one day to another.